thank you for getting up this early on a Sunday. It's kind of weird. Yeah, so I'm here only out of vanity. I don't do non-paid speaker gigs, but because we're in Oxford and I have no education, I'm here. So yeah, you know my name. The most important thing in my life is that I'm the father of 4 fantastic children. And I also like the fact that Google will very soon help me to find them. I consider myself a creator and innovator. I don't really know what I am. I have throughout my life, I started in advertising, which was extremely lucky because then I saw a lot of idiots coming with their marketing budgets discussed throughout the early 90s, whether it would be teletext, television, or the internet becoming the largest thing. I discussed that with the CEO, with the head of marketing at Coca-Cola, because very early, some of you will remember teletext on TV. There were extremely good response rates. But coming out of that, I've been investing and looking into all kind of stuff. Thing that tells everything about me is that I invested a couple of $1 million in a company called Ariza, where 3 guys during influence of substances definitely developed the idea to gene modify a plant that would be able to detect TNT. So if it would detect TNT, it would turn red. And that's how you could actually detect landmines. A beautiful project that I spent a lot of time and money on. 2 years later, we saw that there was a little challenge because how do you plant that stuff? And that probably tells everything about me. It's fairly passion driven. Yeah, so I was very lucky to help out with Kizar. The Skype guys had no money when they were about to pay their rent, so they asked me for the money, and then they had to give me some shares. I thought Skype was the most stupid idea ever. How could you take on Microsoft Messenger? I mean, it was born with every window installation. But yeah, timing and change, you can never predict that stuff. And now Microsoft bought this shit and killed Messenger. How weird is that? Yeah, I've done a lot of security, antivirus stuff, and then the latest to get me out of some trouble I made for myself. I was very lucky to meet Christian, and we built TradeShift. I'll tell a little bit more about that. Yeah, so what I'm looking at, because I came from marketing, is everything you can do around the social media and the profiling. I see it as a gift. I don't have any conspiracy theories in my head. I had an extremely nice childhood. And I don't see trouble all over. So I see all the social media, especially Facebook. And I think you should try to Google this afterwards and try to connect to this Museum of Me by Intel. That gives you a trip around your own profile on the internet. If you are on Facebook, I assume you are, otherwise you're an idiot. But that whole thing as a marketing channel is what I'm spending a lot of my time on. And yes, I made a shitload of money, like insane amounts of money. And I managed to throw it all away. I got, like entrepreneurs do, I fell in love with this newspaper project. So basically giving a newspaper to every Danish household before 7 o'clock in the morning for free would naturally wipe out every competitor. And we became the biggest newspaper. I mean, that's something you do by de facto if you just print enough to give them away. But we also became #1 in media sales and sold the most advertising in Denmark. We didn't really. I was not smart enough to foresee the crisis of 2008, and that came and wiped me out like fully. And that's of course interesting to anyone here because some of you want to be entrepreneurs. I don't normally. Well, I do promote entrepreneurship, but I think it's also important to say that it normally goes wrong. So 9 out of 10 of these startups fail. So promoting entrepreneurship is promoting that people will fail or fall over. And some people don't have this crazy mind of mine, so they end up on some kind of medication to stay happy. Fortunately, I lost all of it in houses, but I didn't lose my stamina, and it taught me something very interesting to think about money. I kind of had to fix it because I owed the bank $250 million, And it didn't keep me up at night, but it would be kind of cool if I could fix it. And that made me think a lot about money, and I also learned about money because I made a lot of money selling my advertising agency in 1999 to Leo Burnett. We were basically just 4 guys who wanted to start some kind of a company because at least I couldn't live with the idea of having a boss telling me what to do. And then we watched a lot of Melrose Place. Some will remember this TV series. And we thought it'd be really cool if there was a lot of chicks around where we worked. So we built this 120 people advertising agency and sold it just at the peak of the first, what we can name the first internet bubble in 1999. So and then after that we sold Skype, and I sold a lot of other companies. So there was always a big inflow to my account of money, and I was also really good at spending it, but I couldn't spend all of it actually. But suddenly I had no money, so I had to start thinking about money. And that's what I'm doing right now. Yeah, it's such a weird thing, money, actually. Oh.
Money. Why did we invent it? Seems to me the idea was to make life easier, right? Coins being easier to carry than chickens and goats. We use money to trade for things, to buy food, clothing, wives, and so on. We minted more and more coins until it reached the point where our money patch was bursting, and we couldn't get a good night's sleep because of all the money stuffed under our mattress. That's when we invented the bank, a place that looked after our money until we needed it. Now let me ask you this. When exactly in the 5,000 or 6,000 years since then did money get so complicated? Because it is, isn't it? Money is a pain in the ass. We spend half our life learning it, and the rest of our life worrying about it.
Yeah, so losing everything meant that I lost my money, but I didn't lose my drive, and I think that was the most important lesson. You can't take that away, and for those of you who want to start something, ensure that you shouldn't be working in a bank, because you really need to have a lot of drive. Every door will close, it will smack in your face, and it will be like eating glass. But I think we have to think about now, basically that we're extremely lucky to live in a time where there was you can't really see this, Chinese cheap phone, but there was about 1 billion phones sold last year, with full capacity of a computer that people have in their pocket. That means that there's no real end to the opportunities, also both when it comes to communication and marketing and banking. And to me, the whole new idea of revolutionizing banking and the business that I'm doing in banking is, of course, it's highly regulated, but to me it's just advanced marketing, everything we do. So this whole idea that it's just the beginning with all these phones coming out versus, of course, the early days, all the education opportunities. I see endless opportunity with education. My kids, they're learning in a whole other way. They will Google or YouTube something and learn it instantly. Stuff that wasn't possible before, and the whole idea of and everything happening from Khan University it's crazy. It's really changing 100% how we will work, and the number of spin-offs to be done in that sector are endless. Of course, the whole idea of the whole thing that we will now just have free endless broadband and free storage all over. That will also create opportunities that we can't imagine, and of course the fact that we're starting now we're in a time where you can trade digital stuff. We will very soon be trading the first digital version of a song. It's super fucking weird, but we did it with vinyl, so we'll be doing it with digital. So many things, the books, it will be kind of weird to have a library. It's in your phone anyway. I mean, all these assumptions that are totally changing. Christian's big push, and that I have to talk about. I don't think it will happen, but machines will, in many ways and in many areas, replace humans. And I mean, how do we handle that, and how do we take all that opportunity? If you're really ahead of the curve, you're like Elon Musk. You put $10 million into a fund where you research how we avoid the damages from the highest level of AI, and we can't imagine what will happen right now. But the opportunities are endless. Of course, we're also coming with the 3D printer to this new dimension of craziness. And I mean, we're printing organs now around the world. We'll probably be, there's a big push with the idea that we're going to print food. Of course, we're going to print a lot of food. But how will that work? I just see opportunity. And then I think the very important part, but I don't have to say that here. I have to say that in many other to many other audiences. But I think it's all about the courage to actually be really global. You can't really care about where your market is. You have to attack, of course, any of these new areas, but you also have to attack them with a real global footprint, and really, it must be such a, or it is such a blessing for you guys to start at a school like this and have, a total international impact day one. But many of you will probably not even be able to leverage all these contacts. Ping everyone you know in the early days of these startups. You just leverage your connection network, because you have nothing. You have some kind of an idea, you want to start it out. So find those first 10 clients, and then leverage your network, your friends from this school, from earlier on, and try to push your idea through, because it's not obvious. These ideas they die. It's stamina that takes ideas to reality. This is a little piece of how I work.
Speak. Yes.
Now, I understand you might have some concerns about the financial disclosures leading.
Speak. No. I have 8 people representing me at 8 simultaneous meetings in 6 time zones right now. I sit here and answer their questions, provided they come in the form of a single yes or no proposition.
Well, then let me give that a try.
Well, I wish it was like that. But it's not. So what is the timing here?
30 minutes. Yeah, 7 minutes left.
Okay. So the whole thing is, I should have my Anthony Robbins gear on now, and everybody should get up and dance, because that the whole idea is here that it's your own energy. If you want to build any of this, it's your own energy that you have to put into it. And of course, that understand this whole thing, that nothing is impossible today. You can do freaking everything. So I made a small manual, and you can take the notes now. The problem is that there is no manual. It's all about the drive that comes from inside. There are some principles that you can definitely follow, that you have to dream extremely big, and you have to work much harder than you can ever imagine. But it's not a problem for you guys. At least for those of you with straight eyes. Asians just work 10 times harder than us fat Vikings. Yeah. That whole mentality of hard work is. That's the welfare, the whole welfare state where I'm living and my kids are. It's dying because everybody thinks that you get things for free, and Denmark doesn't get anyone into the top schools because it's occupied by Asians. They're eating us like sushi. So hang out with super smart people. I think that's extremely important. So these are these are the guys I built my first agency with. So some of you will know SteelSeries if you're computer gamers. That's something we built in my basement, one of the biggest computer peripheral mice and mouse pads for gamers. So Jimmy, the other guy there, he's now the CEO of Huffington Post. Lars was the smarter guy. He has a super nice hotel in Bali. and this Jenny there, she's now a partner at Accenture. So I think it's a lot about hanging out with the right people, and of course breaking the rules at any time or any chance. Of course, don't break it so that you go to jail. But it's on that edge. I was part of the biggest digital lawsuit ever in history when 16 record labels gave an open checkbook to 10 law firms to sue Kazaa. So I really know about this shit. And then remember that we have to learn, and at least here, I mean, and where I'm coming from, it's so easy because we're so insanely rich, and just the fact that out of Denmark, I mean, mostly not here in the UK, but out of the Northern Europe, or if you want to move to Denmark and somehow get into that society or the Nordic society, you're top 5% of the richest people. I mean, in here we're 0.1% of the richest people in the world. I mean, there's actually an obligation to go out there and change something. I'll come back to that. I probably have to speed up a little bit now. And then you have to be street smart. It's probably the single most valuable asset. You have to probably oversell a little bit in the beginning. It's a little bit like getting laid. You have to sell your services a little bit better than they are. And that I mean that in every way and shape. But even more, you also have to have the smart friend, or be the guy who really finishes and go to the edge of whatever technology or science, and then implement that or understand that to the full. I mean, to the last detail. And then of course you have to understand communication. Again, I just see Facebook as a communication channel, because when I started my first business, I was sending faxes and direct mails and posting them to high schools, actually selling them weird caps. Today you don't have to do that. You have all these channels. You can ping everyone on the other side of the world. And I mean, after this session, I can find you on Facebook and see who you know who might help me to get into Indonesia with some of my stupid products. That whole notion, I think, is extremely important to see. Yeah, that we can actually message anyone. And then I think it's very important to have fun. It can easily kill you, but if you can't attract people by, I mean, at least make it look like it's fun to work with you, I mean, they will choose the other guys, you know. And then sell like hell. I think that's the most important. And then, it's, I think you will, I mean, most of you guys, if you don't dive in, it's so crazy cheap today. I mean, you can rent the servers, you can rent a coder online, you can go on Elance and Odesk. I mean, there's no risk. You can just cancel a nice dinner, then you will at least have for the beginning of the code. It's so easy, and I mean, I think you're nearly obliged to try. Also, I mean, to at least have created something else than working for McKinsey, yeah. So now we are 2 minutes. Yeah, I probably have to go a little faster. We're back to all the money and stuff. So what I do right now, I was extremely proud to be part of TradeShift in the early days. They started in my basement. It taught me a lot about money and what can be done. An obvious idea is, of course, that you can do factoring on top of, if you have the invoice network flow. Another thing that, yeah, it's boring. Then I'm doing a fund for e-commerce, But what I really want to tell you about is something we call Coders Trust. It's an idea that with plus 10 million people on the online and freelance platforms, there are 10 million people out there working on these platforms. Many of them, and we did some big data, we looked at the numbers and found that 500,000 of these freelancers are working out of Bangladesh. And then we zoomed in on the numbers and found out how many of them work at $1 per hour, because we sometimes use people at $1 per hour. And we did the reverse, I mean, the backwards math, and say if you work for $1 per hour, even if you work 40 hours per week, you can't really make a real living. So we looked at it the other way and said, out of the 500,000 on the freelance platforms in Bangladesh, if we could find those who work for $1 per hour, give them a student loan, give them a curriculum, then we can probably raise them up so that they get $8-9 per hour. That's an increment. I mean, that's really a exponential rise in their salary just from giving them a little bit of skill set. So we've been setting that up, and we called it Coders Trust, and that's the last thing I will show you. I'm just so proud of it.
In my country, there are many talented people who want to make a difference. And if they can work from their own home, they have a chance. They can earn money. They only need a laptop and access to the internet. And of course, guidance. Coders Trust give us a little amount of money and a perfect guideline to build our career. It will turn an overcrowded country into human resources. It will change my life and the whole development of our country. My name is Ila. I am 25 years old and I come from Dhaka in Bangladesh.
So that's like every other crazy idea you get, and then suddenly it works. And Mohammed Yunus put a lot of money into it with us. My biggest hero, the guy who invented the microloan, and we're now on our path to 100,000 students. And it's a for-profit company, so we can hire the best guys in the world. And we're now issuing some crazy, risky corporate bonds to finance this game. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
So, 20 minutes for questions.
Yeah, normally no questions, so I thought that would be easy. Yeah,
Well, you can talk for another 20 minutes if you want.
easily. It's my favorite topic myself.
Okay, there was one there. Okay.
Hello. My name's Alan.
Just maybe briefly just say who you are and where you come from.
Okay. I was going to do that. My name's Alan Harding. I'm a development economist, and I work at the UK Government's Department for National Development. We have quite a big program in Bangladesh, which I'd quite like to have a chat with you about if you've got some time afterwards. I suppose my question. Okay, I haven't really thought of a question. What's a good question? Microfinance has grown very rapidly, but it's had problems as well. Because if you enter a market with sort of subsidised finance, that's good for the people who benefit from it, but you can actually undermine other bits of the financial sector. So, could you say something about that? Are you worried about that at all?
Well, I'm actually trying to dive in and find out who the fuck has a problem. I mean, where does that problem come from with microfinance? What's the problem? I mean, I don't see any problem at all. So there's a country called Bangladesh with 160 million people. It's the shithole of all shitholes. I mean, every second year it's wiped out by some storm and some water, you know. It's too hot. I mean, it's a crazy place. Then this guy gets the idea that if you put 5 women in a room who 5 days in a row show up for 1 hour and get educated about this loan, at the last day you put them in a room and they're told that if you forget this first loan, it's like heroin. You'll need 1 more. And if one of you 5 women don't pay back, the others will not get the next loan. And apparently that miracle of an idea has now helped 28 million women in Bangladesh I mean, in a country with no real hope, with no, they don't have oil, they don't have diamonds, they don't have anything interesting. But now there's a hope for everyone. I mean, there's no hope if you have a penis, but fuck that. So it's only women. But that crazy thing has changed the world as we know it. It will probably, together with the freelance platforms, it will end poverty as we know it. And I don't understand of course, when you have this thing going, it will. I mean, there will be other mechanisms that won't work. There will be some banks that can't charge the profits that they're supposed to. But I think what really makes me optimistic around the microloans is the fact that it spreads like wildfire. So Muhammad Yunus, who invented it, he didn't even get to do it in India. So he started up. They made it work. And then when he wanted to start in India, it was already done. I mean, most of the biggest micro loan and credit companies in the world are in Switzerland. It's UBS. I mean, it's giant finance. But the really interesting part here is, so when you sit in all these meetings that Christian and I do now with all these banks talking about credit ratings, risk, then you have the Western, our part of the world. If you talk about this crowd, how many percent will pay back? Well, it's about 91%. If you go to the developed world where everything is shit, how many percent pays back on a microloan? It's 99.6%. I mean, how does that? Maybe we're stuffing a little bit too much money down the throat of people here that they get so fat they don't want to pay back.
It's also good to lend to women as well. That's the experience.
Yeah. I'm thinking about launching a couple of products in Sweden and Denmark for women only. I mean, my head will be chopped off. They'll chop off my head,
One question. Yeah.
Hi, Carl Jones. I work for a foreign exchange bank, the only truly independent foreign exchange advisor in this kingdom. I was a pilot for 30 years before that, and I watched people and how they react to very severe experiences. You've got a lovely attitude, if I may say.
Thank you.
You lost a lot of money. Did it change the way? Did you lose some of that fluidity, that risk taking? Did you get a little more cautious there?
Well, if I wouldn't, I would lean against being a psychopath here, because what characterizes a psychopath is that you can do a big failure once, but you don't do it twice. Yeah. But I am probably half that. But I got a little bit more. I mean, Christian can answer that. I mean, we managed to raise $150 million for a company that is still, a little far from profitable and very risky, but it's a brilliant, crazy, brilliant, cool idea, and it's working.
What's the idea?
It's basically that if you're a large corporation, you can just put up this gateway and say, we only receive electronic invoices. It's shit boring, but it's super clear. So you can only send an invoice to Nike and NHS here in the UK. A lot of the biggest companies in the world have managed to buy Christian's dream, which is just fucking brilliant. It's amazing, and it will also generate a lot of bank businesses on top of that. So no, I didn't get more cautious, but I will for sure not lose all my money again. It's not going to happen. But also we have to be realistic. My story is interesting because I made a lot of money. It's more sad and it's more tough to hear about a guy who actually lost his job. I just lost my freedom. I can create something new. I didn't lose my job. I was disabled for a couple of months.
There was a question there. Yes.
Emanuela Bartolome from Wall Street Research. We are helping investors with independent research support for crowdfunding projects. Hence, my question is around crowdfunding, and if you thought about how you can tap into this field and just maybe build awareness for what you do, maybe finance this corporate bond that you are talking about. So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a really good story actually on crowdfunding. So 2 years ago, I decided that we had to try some crowdfunding because I'm I'm probably one of the best in the world at raising money from venture capital and risk. So I mean, why not try to understand crowdfunding? But I couldn't get my head around it. But then I had another problem, which was that always when I come home too late, I always forget my keys, so I sleep outside the door. Don't want to wake up the kids and everything. So we started a project where we made a digital lock. Many people did that before, so you can open with your iPhone, blah, blah, blah. 3 months ago, after 2 years of hassle, we put it on Indiegogo, not Kickstarter. And we called the lock Sesame. Means open sesame. And I think this is how the world will become. So same week, another team puts a lock on Kickstarter. We are on Indiegogo. They call it Sesame. And no one knew each other at all. I had Bjarke Ingels, this super famous architect. I had a really good team. They had this choppy guy who does all the videos, this sandwich guy. He's always, whatever he would say, you would believe it. You would believe he could take down the moon. So they have now raised. Oh, let me finish with that. So we just gave up. I just told fold. This is not good enough. Give it a new name and get it on again. So we closed it down. 3 weeks later, back with a new campaign. Now it's called Friday Lock, and we've raised $110,000. Pre-selling locks. Nobody will know if we can ever produce them. But crowdfunding is changing everything. I compare it to 3D printing. It's democratizing funding. But you still have to be one hell of an advertising guy, because the guys at Kickstarter, they now raised 1.5 million because they made the smart video. So, I think that gives the whole picture of crowdfunding, yeah?
No, but how are you going to use it in
No, I have to tell my projects to go out there, be credible, show up, comb your hair, do the nice video, and put it on a crowdfunding on a crowdfunding platform, and there will be endless amounts of crowd. It's like dating, First you just had dating, now you probably have, special ear dating. It's niche after niche, and that will be the same with crowdfunding.
Right. Question on the back.
I'm Anders. I'm an undergraduate student in economics here at Oxford, and I'm also from this little hopeless country called Denmark. So my question to you is, what's the most important advice that you would give to your kids, and would you recommend them to live the same sort of lifestyle that you've been living, or do you think you need to have this extreme personality to do sort of the endeavors that you've been on?
I'm not sure I'll advise them to become entrepreneurs, but I think it's too late. They've seen the lifestyle, and they're cool with it. They understand that we always work and we never work, and it's always. We've been to just with trade shift. I always bring my kids, so we've been to Colombia, weird places. They've seen it, and they know that we always have to work, and we never. We have extreme freedom, but as I also stated, the work stamina. Up at 5, maybe also to bed at 5. That whole thing. But my advice to my children, I don't know. I see one of them doesn't have the DNA for it. He would simply melt down. But he will probably be my own CFO.
You don't seem to have a filter between what you think and what you say. How does that affect your meetings with top financiers, people you do business with, business partners, people you compete with, things like that?
Well, they never know what will happen. And I tend to team up with people who have, the structure and the longevity in what's happening. But I'm not sure I can answer. That's how it works. Christian can probably answer.
So having raised a lot of money with Morten, I think one point is, and probably the same thing Morten said is, don't try to be interesting to everyone. Don't try to raise from everybody. Don't try to, because you will only raise from 5%, and it's a game of attention. You're competing with thousands and thousands and thousands of people about attention. And I'll tell you one thing, and I'll talk more about it Monday, so advertisement. when you go in with Morten and, you know, there's no filter between talking and thinking, you get attention. So, and I probably think a lot of people in this room will remember some comments around sushi and Asians, which is obviously one of the most inappropriate things I've heard today. so it worked. And I think, really, I mean, don't be nice, be interesting.
Yeah, but again, it's not. Yeah, but it's not something you can plan for. I mean, it's if you have something on your heart, it's like reading a boring blog. I mean, it takes you 5 seconds to leave it. Yeah, and I think we do passionate stuff. I mean, I'm really passionate about what I do, and that means that we're also able to pivot and change our opinion and get stuff done. But you don't see that on stage, you know. But we get stuff done. Cool.
Hello, my name is Camilla and I am from your neighbour country, Norway, actually. And you were saying that by being lucky enough to come from Scandinavia, you feel it's almost an obligation to make a change in the world. Is that something you truly believe? Or is that
I really do. I also think that people in this room have an obligation to try to change the world a little bit, especially now that the tools are so this available. I mean, with a half a good idea and a crowdfunding campaign, you can definitely help other people who are in need. And being Scandinavian, of course, I mean, there's a free school. I mean, no matter how much I'll fuck up, somebody will end up paying my rent and taking care of my kids. It's incredible. It's unfortunately people take it. I mean, they don't use it for being entrepreneurs. It's really strange, but that's probably because the smart guy just takes the cash, you know, buys an extra TV channel and puts the feed up. Yeah, but I think I truly believe that and think that we are obliged to try and to start companies and change the world. It's also fun. You become a better lover, by the way.
Okay, we have one last question then, if you have the time.
Yeah.
Well, 4 kids.
I run an advertising agency. It seems odd that, you know, Britain seems like it's the wrong size, that you see Skype's these amazing things coming from these very small countries and Google's coming from the US, but like nothing seems to really have come from the UK.
And you have Wonga.
Oh, exactly, except for embarrassment. Yeah, and exactly, we're ashamed of that. But what's wrong with Britain? Why do we not see
I think that's it. I don't know why it works in Scandinavia. Somehow also Minecraft. There's pretty cool stuff coming out, but it's also international. Remember Skype? The tech guys were in Estonia. I mean, it's real international place. And then there is this. We don't really care, you know. We really dare to just set out the highest bar, and then we're pretty good at packaging. Look at, you know, British furniture versus Scandinavian furniture. We're a little bit better. But yeah, then you should be able to leverage the whole, all these colonies and all this. But nobody fixed that yet. And then of course you're too hard on yourself. There's 1 million extremely good small and medium and also large British companies. I mean, and basically Britain can take credit for a lot of the new companies that we're building. I think we put them up in Britain because of all these new support schemes that are very good and very easy and fast to manage.